All right, guys, so Bill Maher is continuing to go in the wrong direction, I would say. He's slowly but surely getting more and more conservative over time. And here's an example of him, very clearly, blaming Hollywood and violence in movies for mass shootings. So let's watch, and then I'll break it down as we go.
And finally, new rule. Now that we live in an age of uber corporate responsibility, where every large company in America bends over backwards to get on the politically correct side of every issue, Hollywood has to tell us, why doesn't that include gun violence?
You know what? I should probably skip this because I'm going to get not just demonetized. This might be blocked on YouTube if I play it with these scenes in there, because movies are notorious copyright pirates. By the way, a lot of my videos have been getting demonetized lately, guys. A lot of them. So if you support the show, please, there's a link below to the Patreon for the show. Just donate $1 or $2 or $5 if you want to go nuts, because I like funding the show more through small dollar donations. I feel meshes with how I think about this stuff better. I hate advertisements. You know, I have a strong dislike for corporations. And so funding the show basically just through small dollar donations is ideal to me. And YouTube, of course, not only is the algorithm screwing us, but now recently there's been a wave of a lot of the segments getting demonetized, probably because a lot of the stuff we're covering is, you know, intense stuff. So hook it up if you can. Link in the video description box below. And thank you to everybody who already is a patron. I really appreciate that. Anyway, let's skip ahead here.
Fact that the average American kid sees 200,000 acts of violence on screens before the age of 18. And that, according to the FBI, one of the warning signs of a potential school shooter is a fascination with violence-filled entertainment. It's funny, Hollywood is the wokest place on earth in every other area of social responsibility. They have intimacy coordinators on set to chaperone sex scenes. They hire sensitivity readers to go through and edit scripts. Disney stood up to the Don't Say Gay law. Another studio spent $10 million to digitally remove Kevin Spacey from a movie. But when it comes to the unbridled romanticization of gun violence, crickets. Weird. The only thing we don't call a trigger is the one that actually has a trigger.
I do think that hypocrisy is real. That contradiction is real. I think the overall point he's trying to make about, like, the mass shootings, the movies are responsible for the mass shootings, I think that's total bullshit. But I do think the hypocrisy angle is kind of true.
If you make a movie today, you can't show bullying, fat shaming, slut shaming, girl chasing, gay baiting, ethnic stereotypes, or underage hookups where drinking is involved. You know, what we used to call comedies. But those things...
He does have the get off my lawn energy these days, doesn't he?
These are bad, and everyone knows you can't platform bad things. You know what you can still platform? One guy who's the hero getting over a grudge by mowing down a multitude of human beings.
All right, gotta skip this.
Because no impressionable young male would ever imitate that.
Really, they were all just inspired by movies. That's it? Violent movies?
Now, the usual suspects on the far left will say that I'm delivering some sort of conservative rant here, or that I'm...
Because you are. I mean, that's what this is. Now, you could deliver it and say, I think the conservative narrative is correct. You could say that, but don't pretend like you're not delivering a conservative argument. Of course you're delivering a conservative argument. These are the same violent video games lead to mass shootings, or, rap music makes our kids degenerate. Like, the idea that pop culture is the overriding, overarching primary factor for negative behavior, that's a conservative argument. We need to clean up our morals and values. And like that's a conservative. Just admit that. Admit that. You could say, I think it's right, but don't pretend like it's not a conservative argument.
Undermining gun control. No, it's neither. It's just what's real. There's a pie chart.
Oh, it's just real. I don't want to get ahead of myself here, but I have to show it. Movie violence doesn't make kids violent, study finds. Huh. Weird. Now, we don't need to go through this entire study because there's a million of them, but there's also ones on video game violence doesn't lead to violence. But he's so smug about it and he's so wrong that I had to just jump to that now and show you.
Part of why mass shootings happen, and we don't know exactly how much of each of the pieces is responsible, but the major ones are mental health, that is, broken young men who feel like losers and want the world to hurt like they do, easy access to guns, kids having smartphones, which makes losers feel even worse because of the bullying and all the fake...
Smartphones? I mean, he's just making this chart up, effectively. That's what he's doing. Why are you doing this, Bill?
Lives that look better than theirs. And yes, crazy amounts of gun violence in movies and TV. We don't show movie characters smoking anymore because it might look cool and influence children, but you're telling me these cool dudes don't influence them?
Again, I gotta jump it. Sorry, guys.
This.
God, Jesus, Bill, stop showing fucking movies.
Not just the idea presented over and over and over again that guns are the best solution to life's problems. It's why the hero is using a gun. They call them action movies. They should call them revenge movies, because that's the plot of every one of them. And there's a sick similarity in the revenge fantasies Hollywood turns out and those of school shooters.
I want revenge. I want them to know that death is coming, and there's nothing they can do to stop it.
Here's a list of just the
Probably should have jumped that too. My bad. I zoned out.
action movies that have vengeance in the title. Blind vengeance, bitter vengeance, cry vengeance, sweet vengeance, dark vengeance, fast vengeance, blue vengeance, forced vengeance, heated vengeance, naked vengeance, acts of vengeance, deadly vengeance, out for vengeance, bound of vengeance, fistful of vengeance, streets of vengeance, angel of vengeance, ministry of vengeance, with a vengeance, codename vengeance, fort vengeance, kickboxer vengeance, ninja vengeance. And taste of vengeance, my least favorite Chinese restaurant.
Weak mustache game there, bro.
Vengeance has been in more movies than pets in sunglasses. There's even a movie called I Am Vengeance, Retaliation, even though retaliation means vengeance. It's like calling your movie I Am Pregnant, Expecting. Getting revenge on them that wronged you is what happens. It's all that happens in movies that are made for and loved by young men. It's the male version of getting your groove back, or Meryl Streep getting a big kitchen. Like every school shooter, our movie heroes are grievance collectors. And when it comes to action movies, there's one story. He was a nice guy, but they pushed him too far, and now it's on. They took my daughter. They killed my father. They killed my fiance. They killed my family. They killed my family again. They killed my puppy. All of which doesn't just create a culture of violence, but a culture of justified violence. Liberals hated it when Kyle Rittenhouse, they hated him, but somehow the liberal capital of the world is okay with making 500 movies about vigilantes. They hate it when gun people say it takes a good guy with a gun to stop a bad guy with a gun, but then they endlessly produce movies with that exact plot. Now, thanks, one guy. Now, am I saying don't make these movies? No, not at all. I've never forced censorship or organizing society around what crazy people might do. But don't look me in the eye and tell me this isn't a big part of the problem.
It's not a big part of the problem. It's not. As we learned from the plethora of studies, people are able to separate this is entertainment, this is a movie, this is fake from real life. They're able to do that. Okay, here's the debate-stopping argument, to the extent you could even say this is a debate. Japan, South Korea, these countries, Australia, they all have violent movies. They all have violent movies. But they don't have anywhere near the number of gun deaths or mass shootings that we have here. They just don't. We have 39,000 gun deaths every year here. In Australia, the number's usually around 100. In Japan, it's as low as like 9. Now, what's the connecting tissue? What's the difference, I should say? What's the one variable that we are different on? Access to guns. Access to guns. It's that simple. When you have more guns in circulation, you're going to have more gun violence and gun deaths. That's just the way it works. If his theory was correct, then all these other countries that have the violent movies, they should also have a tremendously high number of gun deaths. But they don't, because they don't have the access to the weaponry. So it's just, I don't know what he's doing. But I get this weird feeling that he knows that this monologue is bullshit. Because he is smarter than this. Got a lot of issues with Bill Maher. But he's smarter than this. He knows that this is not true. But he's making the argument anyway, which is super suspect.
Every bad idea a kid can get about how to handle feeling abused and disrespected is in all these movies, including the ridiculous cliche that if you are the good guy, the avenging angel who's doing all the killing, you never get shot. And if you do, it's nothing. This is how bad guys get shot in movies.
Can't. I gotta skip it again.
Heroes get shot.
I can't. Gotta skip it again.
That's the message from the people who hate guns the loudest. Don't worry about them. If you get shot, the worst that'll happen is you might have to sit beside the ambulance with a blanket.
Okay. All right. There you go. Terrible argument. And by the way, the idea, he was like, so basically like, this is a huge part of the problem, but also would I change it? No. Well, that's ridiculous, because if that actually was a big part of the problem, and the only thing that needed to happen to fix the problem was to change the culture of Hollywood, where now, you know, gun violence in movies becomes more taboo, then yeah, you should change that. Absolutely. If instead of having, you know, shoot 'em up gun scenes, instead you just had, like, whatever, martial arts type scenes, that would be a minor change to the culture of Hollywood, and by his logic, it would save tens of thousands of lives. You know? So, it like, his argument makes no sense. This is a big part of the problem, but also, we shouldn't change it. Well, no, the reality is, it's not a big part of the problem. It's not part of the problem at all. And that's the only honest assessment based on the studies. It's really annoying when you see a long rant like this, and it's like, dude, one Google search would have dispelled this notion immediately. Or one thought of like, hold on, other countries have violent movies too, and oh, would you look at that? Would you look at that? They don't have the gun deaths. They don't have the mass shootings. So, it's access to guns for sure. I also would do universal mental health care, for sure, to help people, give them the treatment they need, give them therapy, psychiatry, give them whatever it is that would help them get by, help them manage their lives better, help them not be violent. I'm in favor of universal mental health care as part of a Medicare for All system, but I'm also in favor of gun laws that would be more reasonable and reduce the number of gun deaths. He really is sort of dodging here and giving credence to this conservative narrative, which honestly is total bullshit, and it's obfuscating and deflecting from the core of the problem. And look, this just added to the list of more and more things that Maher is saying and doing that really are nothing like old school Bill Maher. I'm gonna do a segment one day, old school Bill Maher takes, and you'll see he absolutely has changed. Absolutely. I mean, I know you guys know that already. He went from supporting Bernie Sanders in 2016 to Amy Klobuchar in 2020. So that's a huge change. You can't say everybody else changed, not me. No, you went from supporting a candidate who's ideologically left to one that's like corporate Democrat, standard centrist milquetoast Democrat. You definitely changed. But like, I'll give you, the extent of the change is astounding. Because back in the day, I used to love this guy and look up to him and thought he was really interesting and a truth teller. And we'll go through a lot of those old takes which made me like him. But, I mean, this is, as the kids say, this ain't it, chief. If you want to see me and Crystal Ball interview legends like Noam Chomsky, Cornel West, and more, subscribe to Crystal Kyle and Friends on Substack. $5 a month gets you the video version a day early. Remember, we take 0 ad dollars for this podcast. Or you can sign up on Substack for free and get the audio version a day later. Link in the video description box below.